All right. Oh, hey, everybody. Welcome to the morning report. Appreciate you being here this evening. We've got what I think is an important thing, and it's because I was scrolling X. I shouldn't do that, right? I shouldn't do that. But I think it's interesting that people are so upset, and when we're having protests about basically people who are illegal immigrants actually being picked up finally and sent back to their home countries. Uh, and I get the sense that people don't understand. I guess I'm just being nice. I think people do understand, they just don't give a damn. I think that's probably as it more than anything. But let's really talk about what happens if you enter the United States illegally versus if you enter Mexico illegally. Let's just be plain and figure out what happens if you come here illegally. And that kind of explains what a lot of the problem is. And what happens if you go to Mexico illegally. First of all, what actually happens? There is processing. If you get caught, there's processing. Not punishment. Most people are detained briefly, fingerprinted, and then either released with a future court date that may be not in a week, not in a month, it may be years. And they just get released. Not in Mexico, into the interior of the United States. It seems insane, but it's true. They just, you basically go, so you're not supposed to be here, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's your court date. Oh, because you're here for asylum? Fine, here's your court date. We'll see you next year this time. Come on back. Make sure you make it back. See? Off they go. Now, you may get benefits. Now, when people, this is part of our national consciousness on being entitled. Because when you say benefits, people think, or will say, food stamps, welfare. But you know what else is a benefit in America? Education, emergency health care, housing assistance, legal aid. Somebody shows up and goes, because you see this in a lot of cities, even our city here in Tampa. You see there are lawyers that just do immigration law. It's a cottage industry, and it's pro bono, a lot of pro bono work. So you get legal aid, again, housing assistance, because if you're homeless and you have children, somebody will do something so you're not homeless with children. And if you're sick and you show up at a hospital, you get treated. Now, and if you end up in the hospital and because you have something that you need to be admitted to the hospital, you'll be admitted to the hospital. And you'll be taken care of. My last trip to the hospital was not Thanksgiving before last. And I was there all week, I think. It sucked. I think I was there for 5 days. Like $70,000. $70,000. No, I didn't have surgery. No, I just laid in the bed with medications. They took a bunch of blood when they could get it. Like $70,000. You would get that as an illegal alien. And that's not a benefit? Of course it is. You get to go to you get to go to public school. In a lot of places in the world, school costs money for everybody. Especially like Africa. School costs money for everybody. Here, sign your little child up, in the school they go. They get that benefit. And they may get it for years. Now, who's paying for that? People who, in most places, especially here in Florida, property taxes pay for the majority of of schools, and along with sales taxes. So sales tax, I guess you pitch in, and if you get free housing, you don't pitch in. You don't. And the reality is that you could stay for years because court backlogs are ridiculous. And that could delay deportation for years. And the fact is that some people never leave. And these are the kind of people that we're starting to see on X and on Facebook and TikTok. These videos where people have been here 5, 10, 20 years. Just living this lifestyle, living La Vida Loca, and then someone goes, "Hey, you never went to court. You never. Well, I guess you got to go home." But wait, see, this is a problem. The problem is that when you don't enforce a law, when you don't enforce a regulation, people get the impression that, first of all, you're not serious about it, and it's not really a law. It's not really something you do. So somebody shows up and says, "Hey, we already have laws." For years, we got gaslighted into thinking that in order to solve this immigration problem and this border problem, that Congress needs to act. That was never the case. Never, ever the case. Congress didn't need to act at all. The executive branch needed to act by telling the correct agencies to follow the law right now. And that could have happened all along. But it did not. Especially the past 4 years. Especially. So now you have these very, very highly charged emotional situations. And unfortunately you have all these morons in LA and these big cities, protesting ICE. Protesting the people who are just obeying the law. That's all they're doing. And you have people like Jerry Nadler. He looks like the damn Riddler. No, the Penguin from Batman. Doesn't he look like Penguin? Anyway, like Penguin. So why are they in masks? What the hell? So this best Burgess Meredith impression. Talking about why are people, the ICE agents wearing face coverings? Well, they're wearing face coverings because your constituency are doxing them, and they're trying to protect their families. Dumbass. So there's also this asylum loophole, claiming that asylum, even dubiously, can open the door for extended stays and legal protections. Now, can you seek asylum if you are in a war-torn country? Possibly. So there's no, but here's the hard part. There's no asylum because it's just better here. That is not a reason for asylum. So when people say, well, they're just looking for a better life. Hell, so is everybody. Everybody looking for a better life. You live in the hood long enough, you're living for a better life. So you just can't decide that if you live in the hood, that you're just going to go up on the hill now. I live here. Why? Because it's a better life. You got to house me and feed me and educate me. Y'all remember the case where there was this lady and she sent her daughter to the neighboring school district? Because the neighboring school, it was like blocks. It wasn't like miles. So it was a short trip. She was sending her kid to the neighboring school district because that school was better. And she got arrested. She got freaking arrested. Just seeking a better life. She got put in jail. And fined. And was made to pay for her kid's time when she sent them to the incorrect school district. Seeking a better life, my ass. Anyway, and you get political cover. So many of these politicians, like Jerry the Penguin Nadler, and these activists advocate for illegal entrance, even pushing for citizenship without going through the legal process. They keep talking about, well, they're being deported without due process. Well, if you don't follow the process coming in, you don't get the benefit of the process going out. But here's what happens when you go. Here's what happens when you go to Mexico. Mexico seems to have it together. You get caught, it's immediate detention. You get put in jail. Mexican immigration law is very clear. Illegal entry is a criminal offense. Authorities can detain or deport you very quickly. There are no free rides. You don't get any public services. There's no sanctuary policy. You don't get to send your kids to school. You don't get any free housing. You don't get any. You don't get to go to the emergency room. Yeah, I mean, you don't. You're simply not welcome without legal status. You're not welcome. And there is heavy, heavy policing. Mexico uses its National Guard to detain migrants. They use their military to detain migrants, especially near the southern border. They don't want any Venezuelans or Chileans or Brazilians or Nicaraguans. I have trouble saying that word. Slipping into their country. They don't. So because they have laws and they have enforcement, they don't have to worry about all that much. There's a very short legal process. There's no years-long court battles. If you're in Mexico illegally, deportation is the default. That's what'll happen. That's the first thing. Not asylum. Deportation. Isn't it funny that all these liberals who are saying they're leaving the country, none of them are going to Mexico? They're all going to lily white countries around the world. They're all going to white countries, full of white people. That's where they're going. Anyway, none of them are saying, well, I'm leaving the United States. I'm going to Ecuador. I'm going to Venezuela. No, they're all going to Norway. Because Norway has a bunch of white people. They can't wait to get there amongst the white folks. Anyway. And there is no political asylum shield. Asylum seekers in Mexico have fewer protections and are often deported unless they go through a very strict legal process. Mexico seems to have it together. Maybe we should follow their example. All right. Here's the bottom line. Detention in the United States is often temporary or none. In Mexico, it's immediate and it's enforced. Deportation in the United States is slow and very often delayed. In Mexico, it's fast and you can expect it. If they catch you, you're out. Benefits, sometimes available, like the ones I mentioned. And if you get to stay here a long time, yes. Housing, schooling, emergency health care, yes. In Mexico, no. Sprinkles are for winners. School, Mexican school are for Mexicans. Asylum, yes. Huge, wide open doors. And often abused. Mexico, asylum is very narrow and hard to get. Well, because Central America oftentimes is a hot mess, right? People are dodging bullets, literally. Mexico's like, very narrow and very hard to get. Our political climate, very favorable to illegals. We saw that this past weekend. In Mexico, there is no tolerance. There is no political tolerance for illegals. That's the bottom line. If you sneak into the United States, there's a good chance you'll stay, get help, and possibly never face consequences. This is why you see this turmoil. Some of these folks are finally, after years, seeking. They're finding out there are consequences for their actions. If you sneak into Mexico, you'll likely end up in a cell or back on a bus home way before the ink dries on your entry paperwork, if you get any. That's the difference between a country that enforces its laws and one where the law has been so politicized you don't even recognize it. So what do you think? What do you think? Anyway, we gotta get out of here. Thanks ever so much for catching this quick live, and we will see you on Monday. There's a new series coming out on Saturday about how important it is, how important independent conservative media is, and your part in it. So make sure you check that out on the here on the channel on Saturday. It comes out. It's a 7-part series. You're going to love it. Make sure, if you have not subscribed, please subscribe, share with your friends. Until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. We will see you when we see you. Bye-bye now.